Hi, this is Mrs. Doobie again, and we're going to be going over clauses today in preparation for your final exam. What we'll be covering in this entire presentation is first independent clauses and then dependent clauses. There's 3 types of dependent clauses, but the ones we'll be focusing on today are adjective clauses and adverb clauses. And lastly, we will look at sentence types at the end. The definition of a clause is a group of words that has a subject and a verb. And that goes for both independent clauses and dependent clauses. So whether you have a clause that can stand alone or a clause that cannot stand alone, both of them have subjects and verbs. For independent clauses, they can stand alone as a sentence and need nothing else to complete its meaning. So we have a couple examples here. I went to Spain for the summer. The first thing you want to do is find the subject. Who went to Spain for the summer? I did. And that's a subject pronoun. And what's being said about I went. That's the verb. So this sentence is a simple sentence because it's one independent clause. Remember, prepositional phrases will never have subjects and verbs in them, so it's good to block them off while you're doing this. Before dinner, prep phrase, we shopped at all of the fashionable stores in the center of Madrid. Who shopped at all the fashionable stores? We, subject pronoun. What's being said about we? We shopped, verb. All the rest of these are prep phrases. Oops. And that's one thing that happens a lot, is you might see a long sentence, but actually it's just filled with prep phrases. And all you have is one independent clause. The next is dependent clauses, and this is the type of clause that has different subgroups. So dependent clauses cannot stand alone as a sentence, and they begin with either a subordinating conjunction or a relative pronoun. I want you to pause the tape right now, the video, and write down as many subordinating conjunctions that you know and the 5 relative pronouns that you know. Okay, what you should have come up with are www.asiab, and you should know all the words that represents. And then there's plenty others that I won't list for you now. Then you have the relative pronouns, that, which, who, whose, and whom. So let's see some examples of dependent clauses. After I visited Spain. This is a fragment. And so you have who visited Spain? I. What's being said about I visited. Now you see the subordinating conjunction right here, and that makes it a dependent clause. When, subordinating conjunction, the flight attendant spilled Sprite on me. That's another dependent clause, starting with a subordinating conjunction. Here we have a relative pronoun. Who gave me a free flight because I did not complain? This is not a complete sentence. It would be if there was a question mark at the end, but there's not. So this is a dependent clause. And here you ask, well, who gave me a free flight? Who did? And so the subject of that clause is who, the relative pronoun, and gave is the verb. Okay, so moving on to the subtypes of dependent clauses. Adjective clauses are dependent clauses that modify a noun or a pronoun. I mean, that's a basic thing you should know about adjectives in and of themselves, is they modify nouns or pronouns. The adjective clause will begin with a relative pronoun, and sometimes when and where, which are 2 subordinating conjunctions, but those are the 2 exceptions. They may be starting adjective clauses. And the cool thing about adjective clauses is they come immediately after the noun. As far as adverb clauses go, these are dependent clauses that modify a verb, adjective, or another adverb. And they tell how, when, where, why, or under what conditions. And we'll show you some examples in a minute. These ones actually start with subordinating conjunctions all the time. And then the noun clause, this won't be on your final, but if you want a challenge, you should try to figure it out, because what they are, they're dependent clauses that take the place of a noun. So they can be found in the subject noun spot, the DO spot, the IO, the PN, or the OP spots. And what you can do is try the it test. So if you take out the noun clause and put the word it instead, and if it fits and it works, then you know it's in a noun spot. And then your job is just to figure out, well, which noun spot. Alright, here's your adjective clause examples. Pause the tape and figure out where the adjective clauses are and which noun or pronoun it's modifying. Let's see how you did. I remember the day that I took my first airplane ride. Well, let's just break it down first. We have a subject and a verb here, and a subject and a verb here. This is your dependent clause, your adjective clause, and it's describing day. Which day? The teacher who gives piano lessons lives next door. Teacher lives. The dependent clause is right in the middle, and it's an adjective clause because it's describing which teacher. Subject, verb. Her personality, which is described as dull, makes it difficult for others to get to know her. It's describing which personality, the one which is described as dull. That's your subject and verb of your independent clause. This is your subject and verb of the dependent clause. Good job. Adverb clauses, pause the tape and try to find the adverb clause and draw an arrow to which word it's modifying. Remember, it's going to be a verb, adjective, or another adverb. It might even modify the entire independent clause. Okay, now these are famous lines from poetry, and so let's try to do these together. Let us go, then you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky. That's your adverb clause, and it's answering the question when we go. While I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping. That's Edgar Allan Poe. This one starts as a subordinated conjunction, while. While I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came. This is when there came. That's modifying that verb. And then if you make the Lord your dwelling place, then no harm will befall you. From the Bible. If you make the Lord your dwelling place is a dependent adverb clause. And this one's actually answering under what conditions no harm will befall you. So let's see. Under what conditions will it befall you? It's modifying the verb phrase. Awesome. Lastly, of noun clauses, if you would like to try this one, pause the tape. If you don't want to, just keep on going, because I want you to try to find the noun clauses. These ones will start with usually a W word. So who, whoever, whomever, and then try to find out which noun spot it's put in. Pause the tape now. Okay, here's your answers, just so you know. I know who said that. That's the DO. Whoever said that is the SN. And then whoever finds the stolen diamonds, let's see, is it a subject, verb, DO? This is your IO. Alright, lastly, a sentence types. Simple is one independent clause. Compound is at least two independent clauses joined with a comma. Don't forget that. And a fanboys. Or you can just join them together with a semicolon without a conjunction. And then complex, you can either do DC, comma, IC, or IC, DC with no comma. And complex is, you can have as many DCs as you want, but there's only one independent clause, IC. And then compound complex is two or more ICs and at least one DC. So pause the tape for one last time and see if you can answer all of these questions. If you can do all of these in detail, you will be set and ready to go, and you're a genius and you're awesome, and I hope you do well on your final, and it's been a pleasure teaching you about clauses today. Have a good day.